Why hello, and thank you for clicking on this video. I am excited to show you guys a project that I've been working on for the last couple of months. It is a crochet doll that I completely designed on my own, and while making it, I decided to record myself working on it, clearly, which is why you're able to watch my process on this video. I would like to preface this that there are a few weird cuts, but the way that I did edits for this video was if I got bored watching it, I just deleted huge sections. So a lot of parts where I'm just going back and forth, I just deleted it. Here you can see me sewing on the cheeks that I made, and it did have a weird cut in a few places, but that's honestly because I sometimes forgot I was filming. So I would, especially when sewing, pull the doll off camera and then I would sew, which does not make for a very good video. So yeah, that's the explanation for some of the weird cuts, and if you see things jump around a bit, that's why. Another thing that I did is I did not record every single part of this doll that I was working on. I sometimes would, my back would hurt from sitting in my chair for so long, so I'd take my project over to the couch and watch a movie, and I'm not going to move my whole setup just to record what I'm doing, and that would have been way too much for me. I mostly made this piece because it was a little passion project that I've been wanting to work on for a while, and I didn't want to pressure myself to have all of it on camera, because even now, going back and while editing, I did realize that I crocheted a few things that I literally never used on the doll. Like later on I'll mention his eyes and how he almost had really freaky eyes. I cut all of that. There's no point, they don't make it into the final piece. Same thing with like another little circle thing that I crocheted and I was gonna, sew on to this doll, but I never used them. So I just cut that whole piece. Now a little bit of an explanation behind why I did this project. I was really inspired by Helluva Boss. I had a friend in my D&D group say, hey, I think you would really like this show. And man, she was right. I loved it. I still love it, actually. I loved it so much that I decided to make a doll out of one of my favorite characters, fizzarolli. He's goofy. I don't know. Maybe I just am the sucker for fun clown characters. Like, I love Harley Quinn and Joker. They're the only DC characters I like. Those are the first two clown characters that came to mind. Oh, Big Top Burger. All those characters as well. Like, they're so entertaining for me and so fun. So I decided to make fizzarolli. The hardest part, one of the harder parts, was deciding how to attach his hat. He has a very unique jester hat that lays on his head in a certain way, and I'd never crocheted something like that before. So if you see my notebook, which will pop into screen on and off throughout this recording, I have sketches of what I was doing and what the diagram is, and arrows and pointing. I use a lot of shorthand as well, so if you're trying to read it and figure out what I did, it's not going to make sense. If there's enough interest for people to actually try and remake this, then I can type it up and translate it into normal crochet terms. But if nobody really wants to try and follow this pattern, I'm not going to put in that work if there's no interest. Maybe someday, but I have a whole bunch of other projects that I want to work on in the meantime. So I did end up recording myself sewing the start of the hat onto his head. I would not have made this the same way that I did that you're going to see here. I should have made the hat separately and then sewed it on at the very end. Otherwise, it was just such a pain to crochet in the round with two different colors, switching colors, and then have the whole head weighing me down and being in the way constantly. So there was also a lot of trial and error in this. So I know I mentioned earlier some pieces didn't make it into the final cut or into the final piece. There were also a lot of parts that I had to redo. I believe I redid his torso at least once. I think I was most of the way done, and I was no, this is way too small or something. So I undid the whole thing and restarted. So yeah, trial and error, love it, but that is one of the pros of crochet, is it's very easy to start over, and as long as you haven't like cut the thread or made huge knots in your thread, you can undo it and just try again. So a lot of this pattern came from previous patterns that I'd done already and little things that I picked up and learned. Like the torso was based on like a beginner crochet amigurumi bird that I did with like just making kind of a pear-shaped torso. And then Fizzarolli's collar is another one. I googled like crochet clown, and one of them that came up is the tutorials in Spanish, but I think it's easy enough to follow along if you don't speak Spanish, where this lady just chained a chain to make like the diameter of the ruffles, and then she did, I believe it was 3 double crochets in each chain, which will then make a spiral shape. And then in the original pattern, that's as far as she went, but because my doll is a lot bigger than the original pattern, I went back around and did 3 triple crochets in the next few triple crochets, and on top of that I went back over it with purple thread to mark like the borders of it, and I did single crochets all the way along. That took so much longer than I anticipated, but I think it did turn out well. And once I finally went to go sew everything together, I realized I had made the ruffles way too long, but at least I was able to like fold them together in the right way so you can't really tell, and I sewed it at the back, so that helps. Another thing I did was I altered how I was increasing my rows, especially in the round. So you can kind of see it in some of my notes, but when you get to like even rows, so like instead of going steady and just doing 4 single crochets and then increasing, you would do 2 single crochets, increase, 2 single crochets, and repeat that all the way around, so that way you have kind of a staggered look. Whereas whenever you're normally crocheting, if you increase the same spot every single time, you would actually start to make like a corner. I had that happen in some of my other crochet projects, and I really didn't want to do that again here. So it was just a way for me to elevate my appearance of my crochet amigurumi doll of fizzarolli. Another fun thing that I taught myself how to do literally for this project was a foundation single crochet chain. I think I'd done it once with like some other brief project, or I'd like seen it and I remembered it, but I literally looked up a YouTube tutorial on how to do it again. And this was really important for Fizz's arms and legs. In the show, he wears a purple and teal striped outfit, at least in like his first real appearance. And I struggled so hard on how to make this work. My original plan was to work in the round and like crochet 2, change colors, crochet 2, change back. Then I was like, you know what, maybe a tapestry crochet thing would work here. But after struggling like and doing 3 different ideas that I had for how to make these stupid stripes work, nothing was working. They ended up being in like a spiral, and because I'm not like a professional crocheter, I don't know if that's the right word or whatever, but I'm not a professional. I didn't really know how to fix that. I didn't want to spend the time, so I ended up just crocheting in rows and then sewing them together at the very end. It's quote unquote sewing. I'm crocheting them together. You can kind of see once I flip the piece right side out like where they were sewn together, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. And if I did this again, I also would have added a couple more rows, because once he was all assembled, he was so skinny. Like his arms and legs are just noodles, but that's okay. He kind of does have very spindly arms and legs, so I'll take it. So I did basically the same pattern for both arms and both legs, so I cut it out. You don't need to see that 4 times. And then I just made his shoes / hands. They're all black, they're all the same color. And then I just sewed them on. I also cut out all of my sewing process for this project because, as I mentioned earlier, I sometimes forgot that I was filming. So it would all be off screen and off camera, and especially once he got really big, it was really hard to even hold the doll steady enough to sew everything together. I am so excited to finally reveal this. This is the Crochet Fizzarolli doll that I have been working on for like 2 or 3 months now. He's huge. It's mostly the legs. Probably 2.5 feet tall, because it's fully the legs. But this is him. Here he be. He's not perfect, but I got the colors. There's a lot of trial and error, a lot of combination of crochet experience that I had to pull in. Some eye attempts. Oh my gosh, his eyes almost were like terrifying. I think I still have them over here. But here he is. It took me like two months from the planning stages. This man's gonna go up on my shelf for a while, at least. He doesn't stand up the easiest. Here's the tail and everything. The tail looks so curly. It looks like a pig's tail because of how I made it. But anyways, you see, like, oh my goodness. Here we go. Thank you for watching the time lapse for all of these steps in the process of making this goofy little doll. Go watch Helluva Boss. Anyways, thank you so much for watching.